Hi guys, hail hail. Welcome to the new Celtic Minded podcast. A podcast with a living Celtic legend. An absolute honour it is for me to host a podcast with a guy with 245 appearances for the famous green and white hoops and 113 goals. A man in Scottish football, Frank McGarvey, who is unique in that he's won the league titles in all of the divisions and every one of the cup competitions in Scotland. He truly is a legend, and I'm so pleased that he's decided to join the legend, which is, of course, me. I'm the Celtic fan who dreamed of doing what Frank did, because Frank was a wee guy for Easterhouse who lived the dream, supported Celtic all his life, and eventually signed for Celtic and became that living legend. Somebody who I'm proud to call a pal and a friend. Our podcast throughout this season is going to be called I'm Frank and He's Tommy. And it's going to offer support for the boys in green, support for the new chapter in Celtic's history, behind Big Ange Postecoglou as he takes Celtic forward. We're going to have a mixture of chat about the games, chat about the pool, chat about what's needed at the club, and of course unique chat about this man's background and stories. Over 5 years at Parkhead, but even more years in Scottish football, and stories the likes of which you won't hear anywhere else. Frank McGarvey, it's a pleasure to share a podcast with you. I hope that this goes from strength to strength. Can I start by just saying to you that I remember one particular cup final, and I probably remember it differently from you. And maybe we could start with this and then go on to yesterday's game, because I'm dead keen to talk about yesterday's game because it was so good. But I just thought the day about this wee memory, Frank. I remember the 1980 Scottish Cup final, and I remember you ran your absolute heart out. You covered every inch of the field. It was a close game. It looked as though it was going to go to extra time. And then out of the blue, a shot that's unique in itself for Danny McGrain outside the box. And then a wee flick for Charles McCluskey. And lo and behold, we won the game. And I nearly got arrested for invading the park because I wanted to give Davy Provan my scarf. I never managed to do it. And the rest, they say, is history. But what's your memory of that day?
My memory of that day, we were playing a team, Dundee United, who at the time were about 14th in European football. You've got to remember the year before they get into the semi-final of the Champions League, which was unbelievable.
I'm going to interrupt you because that's what you do in these podcasts. I've not set this up right, because I think you're talking about the 1985 Scottish Cup final and I'm talking about the 1980. And
You're right.
And of course, that was a different opposition.
Yeah, I got you wrong there, Tommy. But the 1980, as you said, Danny went up and was going to shoot for 30 yards or 40 yards. And Danny wasn't the greatest striker of the ball, a world-class player, but he wasn't. And he went up and they all had, the opposition had, because they thought he was going to hit it. And he sclaffed it to George McCluskey, who therefore put it into the net, and that was a wonderful day.
We won it 1-0. The Rangers fans weren't particularly happy with the fact that some of the Celtic fans went onto the park, and I got onto the gravel. I never actually got onto the park. But I got onto the gravel with my scarf. All I wanted to do was to give it to Davy Provan, who in those days he was one of my favourite players. You were always a favourite player. The reason you were a favourite player of everybody, I think, Frank, is you epitomised to me what Glasgow Celtic was all about. You never gave up. You just never gave up. You annoyed the centre halves. You kept running. And the truth is, and I'm not just saying it because you're here, I think you were very underrated. And the reason I say that is people talk about Charlie Nicholas, people talk about Brian McClare, but the common denominator in Charlie Nicholas's career, Brian McClare's career, and George McCluskey maybe not as prominent, but it was you that was the guy that did all the running and all the spade work. And of course, I remember the season, I think it was 81-82, when there was 70 goals scored between the three of you, Charlie, Nick and McCluskey. But you scored 27, you were actually the top goal scorer. And from my point of view, I don't think you got the credit that often you merited in terms of the goals you scored.
I don't think I got the credit from the press, but the jungle, I always get credit from them. They loved, the jungle loved people that give their all. And the one thing that got me for the game the other night against Dundee was Kygo. He scored a few goals, he nutmegged the guy, a wee magic player, but the one thing that he done for me was he ran back to tackle one of their defenders, got the ball and made an attack. That's what Celtic need. People who are going to give 100% for the club. Even if they're playing badly, they'll still give 100%. And I have to say, sadly say, that some of the players that are playing in last year haven't done that.
You know, you've very seamlessly brought us into the modern day and yesterday's game, which was fabulous. Because there are so many stories I want to discuss with you, and we've got to be careful because we've got a whole season ahead of us. But there are very few guys who can say they played in the same game that Paul McStay made his Old Firm debut, that played in the same game that Ali McCoist made his Old Firm debut, that played in the same game that Willie McStay made his Old Firm debut. And there's very few players who can talk about the number of winning goals they've scored against Rangers that you have. And I want to go into all of them. I also want to go into the background with your relationship with Big Billy, your relationship with Davy Hay, your relationship with Tommy Burns, your relationship with Alec Ferguson. Loads of stories, Frank, and it would be impossible to squeeze all that into this first podcast, but that's what we're offering, isn't it? We're offering those stories that you're going to be able to touch on and give us a wee bit of insight into. But from my point of view, what you just mentioned there about Kygo, I was so impressed by his work rate. So impressed. I mean, wasn't he just he's running off the ball? That was great. When we had the ball, he's running off the ball was great. Sometimes he was found, sometimes he wasn't. The Ryan Christie pass was superlative. It was absolutely sublime for his actual hat-trick. But his closing down of the defence, that, in my opinion, humble opinion as it is, that led to our first clean sheet. Because the way that he harried and harassed the defence stopped them from building attacks for the back, and that made it easier for the defence to actually get a clean sheet, in my opinion. You watched yesterday's game. Tell me who was your star man? What impressed you most? 6-0, brilliant result, but what impressed you most?
What impressed me most was Kyogo's running back and tackling defenders. That impressed me greatly because, and also having the energy to score goals and make goals. So he impressed me very, very much. He just was outstanding, I thought, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but what I like about Celtic just now is their quick passing of the ball. They don't pass it, but this pass the ball at the back and back to the goalkeeper. None of that. Into the midfield, wide, into the midfield again, out wide, and their attacks are amazing. I have to say that I watched the first half of the game and I couldn't watch the second half because I had to do something at that time. And that's the first time that I watched the first half of a game and I was really looking forward to watching the second half. Now, that doesn't happen to me a lot. In that game, I was wanting to watch the second half and I was so disappointed I never seen the second half because I knew there was more goals, because Dundee have got a lot of older players who wouldn't last the 90 minutes. And Celtic, I thought, were outstanding.
Do you know, Frank, it's dead important that we highlight the positives, because not only did we score 6 goals, not only were some of those goals utterly significant in terms of the build-up play. I think that personally, I thought Ryan Christie showed again, because I think he's done it in the 4 games so far, but he showed again yesterday the reason why, in my opinion, and I know last year I was one of those who thought, where is Ryan Christie? Because he disappeared. But then again, so did many of the Celtic players last year. The season before, he had been outstanding, absolutely brilliant, dragged us through games, scored goals that were absolutely magnificent, and then he disappeared. I think he's back, and I think he's back with aplomb. The way he set up the second goal for Kygo was incredible. Nutmeg down the line, bit of pace, and then the critical part of it, because you played football all your life, and you know that getting into the position is brilliant. But if the final ball's not right, then you don't score the goal. And he waited, he played the beautiful ball across. Kyogi's run for him was excellent, dipped the shoulder, defender goes there, he nips in behind, and then he made it look easy. But as you know, it wasn't easy. So from my point of view, Frank, I think it showed that Celtic, in my opinion, should go and offer Christie a new contract, a better contract, a big contract. I'd rather see Ryan Christie in the hoops for the next season than playing anywhere else. That's my personal opinion.
I completely agree everything you said there, Tommy, and I like Christie. I think he's a terrific player, so I do. But I have to say, I think we've just got to write off last year, because in my opinion, the board imploded, and therefore when you implode, it just goes to pieces, and that's exactly what happened. I don't blame the players for last year. I don't blame the fans for last year for doing anything. They had a protest, and they had every right to have a protest the way they were getting treated. But I have to say, now the fans are back. That's a big boost for Celtic, because the fans really are the 12th man, and they will not allow anybody not to give 100% in that part. And if anybody does, the fans will soon let them know about it. So any player going to Parkhead now, that's not going to give 100%, the fans will deal with that.
It's a very important point, Frank. It's probably a controversial area, because some fans, I think, in my opinion, were far too intolerant of some of the context to last season. The context was undoubtedly, we were going for that holy grail, as we called it, the 10 in a row, and I think that created a huge rod for our own backs. But we then had a pandemic which none of us had lived through before, and we had a set of circumstances that none of us had lived through before, where Celtic, and playing for Celtic, what's special about playing for Celtic is walking out, surely, to 60,000 fans, chanting your name, they're singing on the club. That you called it the 12th man. That's what it is the 12th man. We went from those heights to empty stadiums where many of the games had a bit of a feel about a practice match about them. And personally, and I know, as I say, it's controversial, and some people will say, yeah, it was the same for all the players. Why did it affect Celtic players more than it affected any others? And my argument is, it affected Celtic players more than any others because Celtic have the support of the fans so much. In fact, and you know, I had a big smile on my face on Saturday because a certain unbeaten run is now over, a certain bubble is now burst. I have to make the point, Frank. some of the Blue Noses in Glasgow, they were a little bit concerned for my health. I saw some posts going up on the social media recently, and they were saying, where is this man? And there's a picture of me saying, where is this man? They're concerned about my health and things like that. And I've got to say to the Blue Noses across Glasgow, don't worry, I'm fine. And see, if you're looking for me, you don't need to look far. I'm in your heat. That's where I am. Thanks for the rent-free existence, not a problem. And from that point of view, you look at what happened on Saturday, the big unbeaten run is over. Rangers have now been beaten. The Rangers have now lost. And I think one of the difficulties that they face, which we don't, is that our fans tend to give more support when things are down. I think our fans last season would have took us over the line. Their fans last season, I don't think they would have won the amount of 1-0s that they won because they scored late on. I think their fans would have gotten top of them, would have given them grief, would have put pressure on them. And from that point of view, I know nobody is necessarily going to necessarily agree with me on this, but I think we miss the fans as a club more than them. And I think that context is important to last season, Frank. So you're right, not to, who do you blame? I think you blame a lot of circumstances, but the board, for me, underinvested. And sorry, Frank, I'm going to let you come back. I'm speaking too long here, but here's something. I remember winning 5-1 against Hamilton, first league game of the season last year. And I remember thinking, brilliant, we've got a great pool. We've got a great team. We had options. We had guys who apparently we were going to bring in, and we did in the shape of Big Duffy and in the shape of David Turnbull. But we started with the likes of Elyounoussi. We started with Edward scoring a hat-trick. We started with James Forrest creating 2 of his goals that day. And I thought things were going forward. And the bloody wheels come off the bus, mate.
Well, I think at the beginning of last year, I have to say that I thought Celtic were going to win the league and win it comfortably. And that is, sometimes that's called overconfidence. And I felt a bit overconfident that we would do that. But if I'm a member of the board, I cannot be overconfident about winning the league. I've got to get things in shape, make sure everything's good, and really go for it. And I feel that the Celtic board especially, their overconfidence in Celtic winning the league was their downfall.
Well, you think about it, Frank, they could have been overconfident at the start, but when it was clear that Big Duffy wasn't, he had a lot of personal problems going on in the background, and my heart goes out to the big man, what he suffered in relation to his father and his personal life generally, but it just didn't work. But when it became clear it wasn't working, when it became clear that El Hamed wanted away, when it became clear that we were going to sell Jeremy Frimpong for a tidy sum, £12 million, surely a board worth its salt has got to say, we need to replace these players, we need to bring in a proper right back, we need to bring in a proper left back, because you don't need to be a footballing genius to see that our biggest problems last year was the defence.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also would say that I thought it was they brought in the manager what was it for the last part of Neil Lennon. They brought him in. I thought that was a good idea to bring a manager in for a short time, and he won the league. I thought that they should have brought him in for a short time and looked out and picked a manager for the 10 in a row. Because Neil, I love Neil, but I think I don't think he should have stayed on as manager, and I think that was a big problem as well.
Well, you and I, we agree on so many things. Frank, will disagree on that, because I thought Neil was the man to take us to the 10, and I'm not going to change my mind now. He certainly seen us through a patch when Brendan got the chance to move to the Premiership where he wanted to go. I've got no problem with him going. I've got a problem with the timing of when he went. I wish he had waited and done it properly. But what he done at Parkhead, in my opinion, was brilliant. However, he left us a bit in the lurch, and Neil picked up the baton, and he carried it, I think, with aplomb. And the truth is, if you look at the way we performed, we actually played even better, scored more goals, and we became, I think, very classy, and we're going forward, particularly when we played the two up, when Lee and Eddie were playing up front. However, and this is the point I'm making, Neil Lennon has never dealt with a pandemic before. Neil Lennon's never dealt with players not being able to associate with each other, players having to have 2 or 3 to a dressing room. I mean, I'm told that they couldn't even have a proper team talk. Before they went out of games, they couldn't have a proper team talk because they weren't allowed to be in the one dressing room for a prolonged period of time, so that messages were getting passed on via players. And of course, you then had the Bolingoli incident. You then had the injury to James Forrest, which was more significant than many of us gave credit for it at the time. So we can look back and we can go over the coals of the whole thing. But the truth is, the board, in my opinion, was the source of the problem, and a lack of quality investment in the squad. You think of the amount of loans that we had. I mean, you're talking about Elanusi was a loan deal. You're talking about Big Duffy was a loan deal. You're talking about the left back we brought in was a loan deal. The right back that we brought in was a loan deal. Celtic Football Club, we're world renowned, and we're bringing in bloody loans. That should be an exception, not the rule. And yet that's what we did last season, and a season that was very, very important. But here's something I'm going to say to you, Frank, and again, not everybody will agree, because it only comes round once in our lifetimes, and I think we've got to bear in mind, there's a reason nobody in Scotland's won 10 in a row. It's because it's damn hard to do it. Even the Lisbon Lions couldn't do it right, so we know it's hard. But this season is even more important than last season from the point of view of the development of the club in relation to the finances. Because when is the last time that you win in the league gives you automatic qualification to the Champions League in Scotland? It must be about 13, 14, 15 years ago the last time that was a reality. If we win the league this year, there's no qualification, there's no worrying about we get new players in. We can plan for the group stages. That's a pot of gold worth 40 odd million pounds, Frank.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with everything that you said, but my main thing about any football team is the manager is everything. Jock Stein came in 1965 and he took over Celtic, but the problem Jock had was they wanted to buy the players, and Jock put in his contract that he wanted to buy and sell all the players, or he didn't want the job. And he got that, and 2 years later, they won the European Cup in magnificent style, and that was brilliant. So the manager for me is the most important person at the club. And Postecoglou, what's his name? Postecoglou. Or Big Ange, I just call him Big Ange. We'll call him Big Ange because after that result, he bought the Japanese Kygo, and he bought him. So I don't think the Celtic board should have any more interest in buying and selling. I think they should leave it to Big Ange because he is a cracking centre forward, and I can't believe I'm saying this, and I can't believe I'm so positive about Celtic today after that game, because I thoroughly enjoyed the game, and again it was played the Celtic way, attacking, good passes, plenty of goals, exactly what the Celtic supporters need. That's what they need. I got a boost from that, and today I went about everything and I felt better because that happened. And the manager for me is the most important person, and I think they've not done everything right, the board, in the last year, but I think they've got this guy spot on.
Well, you know, Frank, I've discussed this with you, I've discussed it with other friends, Celtic supporting friends, I've also discussed it with some Blue Noses, and I'm going to say this to you, and it's not something I'm saying after the event, I'm saying it, I said it to you before the event, and that is, that I didn't think Eddie Howe was a great fit for Celtic. I think what Eddie Howe lacked, Ange Postecoglou has in spades, has in abundance, and it's character, Frank. Character. This is a guy. Let's face facts. This is a guy 5 years of age, is a refugee, has to flee Greece because of the military coup in Greece, has to flee with his sister and his mum and dad, try and make a new life in Australia with a couple of suitcases. And they go to a foreign country and they try and make a new life. And Ange talks about how all he remembers about his mum and dad was how hard they worked. And he found his outlet in football. It became his passion. He's quoted as saying something, Frank, which I think fills me with so much pleasure and so much inspiration. He says, in Australia, on a Sunday, there was 2 churches and there was 2 worships. There was the church in the morning that they went to, and then there was football in the afternoon. That's brilliant. I mean, you and I were like that. We played football, didn't we? All the time. That's all we ever did. We played in the street, we played with the school, we played with our clubs, we played on a Saturday, we played on a Sunday. We loved football. This is a man who loves football and who's bringing new ideas, fresh ideas to the game. These fullbacks, Taylor and Ralston, and big shout out for Ralston, Frank. I've never been his biggest fan other than his effort. I think his effort is extraordinary. I think his effort is brilliant. I think he's got limitations as a fullback, but I cannot fault him in his last couple of games, the 2 league games. I think he's done a fantastic job. I still think we need extra quality being brought in there. I do have to try and balance up the joy of yesterday, the 6-0 against Dundee. We've got to balance it up with reminding ourselves it was Dundee, and they've no won for 26 years against Celtic. They're not going to win, in my opinion, many games this season. We're going to come up against tougher opposition. We're going to come up against, and this is the key for me, Frank, more physical opposition. And by more physical, I mean bigger, more athletic, in midfield, in the forward line. And I look at that team yesterday, Celtic, and every time they had a corner, every time they had a free kick, I was worried. I was worried because I don't think we're physical enough at the back yet. Don't you think that we need to recruit at least a couple of full-backs and one other centre-back?
Well, I think that's... everything you've said there is correct, but I think the manager, what he has to do, he's not got a scouting system, which I'm very worried about. He's got to get a chief scout with 5 scouts, and he's got to tell them, I need a midfield player who's going to do this and do that, and he has to do that, and that'll take a year or 2 to do all that, to build a team. And once he's got the team all playing with each other, they'll be amazing in this club, because I just love the way that he plays his football. The ball is not played about at the back, up to the midfield, over to the wing, up to the forwards, back to the midfield. And what I look for when somebody's got the ball, I always look to see what everybody else is doing. And that Celtic team are very energetic because they keep doing it. Now, if you keep doing that and keep moving, that's hard. I don't care how good a defender you are, that's very difficult to defend against. And this guy, as far as I'm concerned, I think they've got the right guy, which is the most important thing for me, for the board to do. They've got the right manager, which I'm so happy about. And do you know something? And I've not said this for a long time, I'm looking forward to seeing Celtic playing football this year. Proper football.
Well, Frank, I was looking for a quote there from a show, one of these Australia shows. It was all about Ange Postecoglou and his achievements in club football in Australia, also his significant achievements with the national team, taking the national team to the World Cup in 2014, taking the national team to winning the Asian Cup in 2015. The guy's a legend in Australia, absolute legend. But the point was that one of his friends is quoted as saying his way of playing football is very demanding on the players and it doesn't suit all of them. And then I watched one of his training sessions, one of the ones that he was mic'd up, and he took the training session, and I was listening to what he said. He said, you never stop, when you've not got the ball, you're always on the go, on the go, on the ball, off the ball, on the ball. And I thought, hey, that is tempo. That is tempo. And what you saw yesterday, in my opinion, was for the first time it began to click. I don't think it clicked against Midland. Certainly never clicked against Hearts. But it did click yesterday. They were moving. And I think it's difficult, Frank. You and I, well, you more than me, obviously, because you became a bloody star, whereas I just played football and never ever made it. But when we played football as kids, we played football where the right back was a right back, the left back was a left back, centre half was a centre half. He's now brought into the game here this inverted fullback system where he doesn't want his fullbacks out wide. He wants them to come in, pick up the ball, and that causes problems for the opposition because the opposition left half, right half, then has to say, oh, wait a minute, do I vacate this wing and leave all the space? Or do I let this guy get on the ball? And if he gets on the ball, that guy turns and can maybe make a pass out wide to the space it's creating. I think what he's trying to do at every juncture is create space in the park for overloads. And the wee Abada fella that's come in looks the part and he's thriving with getting that extra space. Have you seen that type of football played before where the fullbacks are expected effectively to become midfielders?
Well, but what you're really saying that the football players must work for 90 minutes, and I think that's completely correct. They're on the park for 20 minutes, for 90 minutes. Now these fans, they work for 40 hours a week and a lot more of them 60 hours a week to pay Celtic their money. So, you know, them to work hard for an hour and a half is not that bad. And these fans who are paying their wages are working 40, 60 hours a week. So they work a lot harder than the players. So it's not a problem. If I'm on the park, it's not a problem for me to keep going for 90 minutes and finish the 90 minutes strongly. And that's why I like this with Kyoto. He's not got an ounce of fat on him. He's very lean and he's amazing. What he's done for me already has been amazing, and that's the kind of players that Celtic need. If Celtic are ever going to win European competitions, this is the way they've got to play, and that's the hard work they've got to put into the game. And I'm really, I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm really looking forward to the season now and seeing Celtic progress with this kind of football. I can't believe I'm even saying this because I was like, this is a disaster. Celtic have made one positive thing, and that's signing this manager, and they have got to give him the players that he wants to bring in, not the board, because the board know very little about football. They're good business people, they do a good job at Celtic business-wise, but it's the manager who needs to have complete say about who is bought and who's sold. If that happens, Celtic will have a good season.
I'm reminded of a story in this wee documentary, Frank, where Ange got a chance to take over Brisbane Roar football team in Australia because the manager at the time, I think, had got into a bit of bother. So they were looking for a new manager, and they contacted him, asked him to go over and discuss with them. And the first thing he says to them was, I want to change everything. If you guys think everything's okay, I'm not your man. And they then took a chance on him, and the rest is history. Went on to create a brilliant team, they won the league and everything else. And that, to me, is what I mean about character. This is a guy who's got confidence in his own ability. He has got an idea of how he wants football to be played, and he's willing to take that on to the next level and the next stage. And what is dead important with what you said is, he must be allowed to buy the players that he thinks will fit into that. Gone must be the days where you've got managers turning up in training and saying, who's that? And being told that's your next signing. You know, Brendan Rodgers, when your man Marion Shaved was saying, who's that? Oh, he's a winger. Oh, have we not got enough wingers? That cannot happen again. We need, as you say, the board should get on with the business side of the game. The manager has to be given the capacity to develop the team the way he sees best and fit. Personally, and we've all got opinions. Personally, I still don't think we're physical enough. I think we need, at the back, I'd like to see 2 quality fullbacks. People often give Ralston a hard time. I think he tries very hard. But we've got to say on the left as well, Greg Taylor, good player, good pool player in my opinion, but does give the ball away quite a lot, and personally lacks that yard to go beyond his man to get in behind. I would like to see a couple of 2 quality fullbacks brought in. I'd like to see a quality centre back brought in. And then, remember, we've still got James McCarthy to fit into this system. Because I thought yesterday, one of the fundamental differences between this and the last couple of games, I thought McGregor was outstanding. But he was playing in that role, Frank, where he was the sitting man dictating play, right? Is McCarthy going to come in and play that role and let him go up and be a bit more creative? Or is McCarthy going to play beside him? I'm not sure where McCarthy's going to go. And not everybody's going to agree with me, and I'm not expecting you to necessarily agree with me. I think Big Tom yesterday didn't give me enough. Big Rogic, he just didn't give me enough. And if
he scored, didn't he?
He scored, yeah, he scored. He scored a very good goal. Well, that's not true actually, Frank, because yesterday, believe it or not, was his first goal at Parkhead for 3 seasons.
Oh my God.
For 3 seasons. So, Tom used to always score. That's definitely.
What I liked about him, he scored in important games, semi-finals. He played in them. But we are talking about the team. I think just let the manager. Let the manager pick the players. He's got the boy for Kyoto. He's outstanding. Why should anybody else? But he needs to get a good scouting system. When I was down at Liverpool, I spoke to John Toshak, and he said to me, he was one of the scouts, and he said, I said, that's an easy game. You've got a scout, just come, stay a game and all that, and say the player's okay and it's good. He said, Frank, it's very hard. He said, we've got to go to Ipswich, and then we've got to go up to Newcastle, and then back home again. He said, it's very, very hard working to be a scout. And that's what Celtic have got to do. They've got to get a scouting system in, and got to get good scouts in, and Angie's got to get his own men in that he trusts, and you've got to go about. And even the scouting is very, very hard work. So there's nothing easy about having a great football team. It's all hard work, and it's all teamwork. If that whole club, when I was at Liverpool, everybody, if Bob Paisley wanted a player, the board went, what player do you want? We'll get him. And they stuck by Bob Paisley, Bill Shankly. The board gave them everything they wanted, and they repaid them with trophies in abundance. European Cup winners' trophies, not just wee trophies. And they gave them the best, because what happened was it was the team were all together, from the chairman to the cleaners, and they all knew each other's name, and it was fantastic. And that's why Liverpool became such a good team, because they were all together.
Frank, we've definitely got a situation here where, I don't know if you agree with me, but I think the fans have bought in to Ange Postecoglou. I think they've bought into it. I think the guy right away has showed that bit of character, that bit of empathy with the fans. There doesn't seem to be any bullshit about him. He's taken on some of the journalists with their stupid questions. One journalist, after the exit from the Champions League, is this a disaster? And of course he says, a disaster, I've got a different understanding of the word, mate. A disaster's the end. This isn't the end, this is the beginning. Brilliant. And I thought to myself, brilliant. Brilliant. That's character that guy's got. This isn't somebody that's had a silver spoon in his mouth all his life and has had everything his own way. This is a guy who's had to fight for everything he's got. He's had to show a bit of grit. I watched some of his games. He was quite a tasty tackler in his day. He got in and about it, and his friends, the testimony his friends give him is he hates to lose. He hates to lose, and I think the best winners in the world are those that hate to lose. So I think we are going to buy into this, Frank. Listen, we're going to come to the end of our first podcast, mate. I've loved chatting with you. The most important thing that we've taken for this is we've got optimism back. We've got optimism back.
We have got happiness back. I'm happy today after watching that game at the weekend. It was sensational. And I don't say that about a lot of games. That was a joy to watch. The quick passing, the balls into the box, and the wee touches. And do you know something? It's only going to get better.
Exactly. Frank, we're going to wind things up now. I'm looking forward to asking you about playing in the game where Paul McStay made his Old Firm debut. I'm looking forward to asking you about your debates with Davy Hay, despite winning the Scottish Cup for him and probably saving his job. Unfortunately, you never got offered the contract you deserved. I'm looking for some stories about Big Fergie as well, because he signed you for St Mirren, and I believe he tried to sign you at Aberdeen as well. But those are stories that we can keep for future podcasts. Thanks for tuning in to I'm Frank and he's Tommy. There's going to be more shows coming up, and we're going to be behind big Ange as the new chapter in Celtic's history unfolds. Hail, hail, everybody.